Can't I hear? Testing, testing. Ooh, testing. You can hear me. I cannot hear you.
Ha! I'll bet if I turn my microphone on, that'll be way more useful.
That's the magic.
Yeah. So I just spent the first 40 seconds yapping at the screen with nothing going on. What's going on, dog?
Yo, I'm trying to set up a different camera here. Maybe make myself look a little bit better.
Okay.
Um,
Are you in the sauna?
I'm not in the sauna anymore. Yeah, I'm in the garage.
Okay. I was just looking
Yeah,
last night at building my own sauna. It's like, that would be pretty rad.
I think about it from time to time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not gonna give me my what the hell? Oh shit!
What do you got there, fella?
I held down the power button on my phone and it thought I was being attacked.
Oh, it has like a death to everyone in the 6 foot radius thing.
Yeah.
Dude, what's going on in helium? I heard there's some, Max is telling me there's some beaconing issues. There's too much noise in the flying around the airwaves.
I don't.
No, it doesn't sound right.
No.
Okay. Well, I probably heard that wrong.
Was that in the IoT working group? We talked. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the
Yeah.
general idea was that like, the general idea is that you can have too many nodes. And if all those nodes are beaconing a ton, that can interfere with them hearing sensors or receiving sensors. Um,
Yeah. I mean, we see a lot of traffic on subband 2, which is where Helium and TTN and like a lot of these other 8-channel LoRaWAN networks operate.
mhm.
But I don't think we're moving because there's a lot of devices on subband 2 that would be really sad if we bounced.
No, I
So,
think the
yeah.
solution that was suggested to me was just a beacon less,
Yeah, I could get behind beaconing less. Like you don't learn a whole lot more from 10 to 5 or whatever the
or even
change
one.
is.
Yeah.
So right. Yeah, one a day would pretty much get the job done.
Yeah. And it's getting different now. Or not getting different now. I think it's a natural progression of all deepins. Max and I are actually coming out with an article on how deepins are like nature in this profligate spawning thing. Like an octopus has 100,000 eggs. A drive ant queen has a couple million. Even like animals that have a ton of young. Like it's a regeneration strategy is to have a ton of nodes out there and to know that not all of them are going to make it.
Hmm.
And so thinking about for a deepen, whether it's helium or whether it's M or whatever it is that you almost by definition, if you're successful with the incentives, you'll have way more than you need, and then it'll probably dial back. And what ends up happening is someone gave us a thumbs down. Oh, fucking great. What ends up happening is you kind of overshoot the mark and then come back and you end up with a network that's pretty healthy, but it takes a hot minute to get there.
Yeah, I mean this goes to like heavy industry and stuff too. Like you're trying to get those 9 nines of redundancy or whatever. That your resiliency curve gets more expensive the more you like work up that curve.
Yep.
You know, Helium solves that with a shit ton of nodes. And I think a lot of these other deep pins have the luxury of a shit ton of nodes, and that is a pretty cool feature. So
Yeah.
I love to see it for VPNs. I love to see it for render farms, like and everything in between. Like you just want to know that the thing's out there, and you don't care what one it is. You just need the thing to work. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to work. There's got to be enough of them. There's got to be enough redundancy. And I think it's neat that we get to explore this new business model of having an overabundance of nodes and then thinking through, okay, how do you count on that or not count on that, or how do you use that in your strategy of developing any specific deep in any specific network? Because it's new. It's not like something that has happened before, where it was never that Amazon had too many warehouses because people were just building warehouses for them. Like that didn't happen.
I wish, yeah. I think I've heard of DPINs that do that, so maybe they'll get to do that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty rad. We're having we're having one come on, I think in the next week or so. We're psyched about. We've talked to this guy a couple times and been trying to get him on Deep in State, and he's finally coming on, so that'll be cool.
Cool.
But we're seeing it expand out into different stuff. I worked on a little bit the scale idea last week. but I didn't
Yeah,
get
you
very
sent
far.
me some stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't get into it, but
Yeah, it was looking like strain
oh,
gauges, and I think what was the other one? There's something. There's some like vibrating wire piece, and then there's some other piece that I looked at. But it turns out it's probably just as easy for me just to walk down there with a scale, throw it on the ground, put the shit on there, measure it. You know, once a
no,
month,
you
it's
got the
like, oh,
hammer. Got to use it.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So
I'm looking at my calendar. I got free weekend, so maybe I'll see if there's a little $50 flight.
yeah,
Come
yeah,
harass
yeah.
you.
Come on down. Let's figure out what we need so that you don't come down. You're like, oh, you don't have this. It's going to take 2 days to get here. But
I got a backpack full of that stuff. So
okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Let's
lower
see what
wind go
else.
bag.
I like it. I like it. Let's see. So WeatherXM released a an update. Oh Jesus, this morning. Their community was getting really upset that no updates had been released about the progression of mainnet, and I think it's this idea that Helium never had to deal with this because they had launched it on their own from the get go, and so it was never really an issue that you couldn't do anything with the token. But I think we're going to see this as an issue with a bunch of these other DePIN projects that are saying, "Hey, Helium was rad. It didn't get everything right. We're going to try and get more things right and make these business models better and better and more efficient." And this is an
Right.
example of like, okay, they tried it, but it didn't. It's not working the way they wanted it to. But it doesn't mean the project is
Yeah,
broken.
yeah. I think Helium had some luxuries being sort of the first one out there on its own chain. Like the
Yep.
community actually jumped in and built a ton of that stuff.
Yeah.
Remember,
A buy
Joe
built.
Fasulo did well. No, remember there was like a somebody stood up an entire like licensed exchange just for HNT because nobody else had done it yet.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
know that. That's cool.
yeah, and then other people started to pick it up. The Alpha Method is the Discord handle, but like did a whole bunch of stuff for Coinbase integrations. Like community was killer. It sort of just jumping in there and figuring out those pieces.
And getting it done. Yeah.
So yeah, and it's a different story today. Like you're like, oh, I'm building on Arbitrum or I'm building on Polygon or I'm building on Solana, and they're like, why isn't this done already? Because
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Yeah.
different
Yeah. No, that's
story.
always the big thing. And then some of the some of the questions are legit, and so you got to suss out the screamers from the folks who are like, oh no, that's we do have to deal with that one.
Sure. Yeah.
So
And it actually makes it hard because there's really good feedback out there.
yeah,
Um, and like, I would love to just like drop feedback in various projects, Discords, and be like, hey, why is this, X, Y, or Z not a focus? But you're in there with everyone yelling about like airdrops and it gets buried. So, yeah.
that's interesting. I wonder. Max will yell at me about this because I haven't thought it through. But this idea of like you stake to ask a question kind of thing.
Mm,
It's like there's a question that gets asked a million times a day in a Discord. If you stake your $10, and it's like, hey, this question has already been asked a million. Like you just lose $10 because you're a fucking idiot because you're not you're not
this is like,
contributing.
yeah, it's like the verify on Twitter with the
Yeah,
little blue check mark gets
yeah,
you
yeah,
actually seen. Yeah.
yeah. No,
Huh.
that'd be good. And I mean, it's tough though because at the same time you got a bunch of new people coming in who do have questions that they don't know where to look or they don't know how to. I don't know. Maybe they don't know how to use
Yep.
a search bar. Uh, I'm a little jaded.
Oh, they don't know how to stake the tokens to like ask the question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
That's the other piece. It's got to
yeah,
the UX has got to be super easy on all this stuff.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it's a thing. I've, seen various attempts too at people writing Discord bots, like leveraging AI to parse out like, hey, somebody said this thing that was unique and you should maybe look at it. Um, but those are really big challenges to build out. So
yeah, I was
yeah.
working on that one, the sentiment one, for a while, and I was like super excited about it. And then I got, it was like a squirrel. Fucking ran off into the next
Sure.
thing. So now there's
Yeah,
this little
and
sentiment
I've seen
analysis.
a couple of others at the same pace, and it's exciting. And we're like, all right, here's try and ingest this channel and see what you can make of it. And it's just a lot. And the Helium Discord isn't as wild as it once was, but
It was crazy.
there
Yeah,
is still a lot happening in there. Yeah, you had to like slow mode that thing every couple hours just to like read the back scroll.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, there's still a lot going on in that Discord, and many thanks to our community managers, Keith and Major, Waveform. Um,
Yeah, they're doing
parsing through all that stuff, telling us what's
continuing to
going
do good
on.
work.
Yeah.
What's new in LoRaWAN world? That's where most of your focus is, right?
Yeah, I got to get hands-on with the particle MSOM last week,
Okay.
which is pretty cool. So it had a little laser etched engineering sample straight from Quectel. So there's a brand new chip from Quectel that does LoRaWAN. They licensed the LoRaWAN technology from Semtech, so there's no Semtech silicon in there. Um, and the entire stack is open source, which is pretty rad. So folks can get in there and do whatever the heck they want to it.
Nice.
And then Particles designing this, like we talked about in the past, just to
Yep.
be like no brainer, plug it in. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's absorbing basically every waking moment of the backside of my head to think about how this integration is going to work. But um,
Okay. And
it's
what do you like? What do you think, or
it's a
what are
fun
some of
one.
the things that are coming up where you're like, oh, this is something new?
Well, there's some challenges in the architecture of Helium compared to other LoRaWAN networks,
Hmm.
and specifically the way we deliver packets, which is time-based. And it's not what most people are expecting, which is give me everything, and I'm going to pick out my, favorite RSSI to send my downlinks through. So,
Yep.
I'm sending from the hotspot back to the device. Um, and that can be a challenge if you're dealing with always on, always waiting to accept payloads, class C devices, and you need a close or strong signal to like send back to that device.
Yep.
Because if you're doing only that top one, you could be 15 miles away from the. So I'm way in the weeds here, but like speed of light, right? That device is going to send out a little signal, and it's going to blast out like 180 something miles in a
Hmm.
millisecond, right? So everyone basically gets it at the same time. But there's this variability in internet connectivity and all of that, where the packet from the gateway back to the Helium network could be 20 milliseconds difference. You've got your Eero mesh like network through your house, and everything has to like relay the messages. That takes time.
Yep.
Um, Small time, but takes time.
Milliseconds. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So yeah, everyone go plug your hotspot directly into Ethernet, directly into your modem, and just like yeah, get all that stuff out in the middle, and then you'll be the first to respond on all those messages. But um, anyway, all that aside, you know, we have to think about how we get that metadata into the LoRaWAN network server. And the simplest thing there is just turn on multi-buy. Like set your multi-buy to like 10 or 20 or 30 or
Hmm.
40 or whatever you want. And you're going to get all that stuff and it's fine. But that comes at a cost trade-off. So
It
there's a
comes
little
at a
bit of
yeah.
a
40. 40 is 40.
it's 40x like 10 microdollars to quote Jerm, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
a small amount still, but adds up on scale. So uh yeah, we're working through some of those details. There's other kind of clever things that can be done where, like, if you know it's a stationary device, then you should just cache all of the responses that you hear, and you don't need to buy, every response every time because you start to understand the network that's around you,
Yep.
and then you can confirm those with, confirmed downlinks and stuff. So, you know, fun little details like that in an integration of this sort of scale because you want to make sure that at the end user side of it, like it's super smooth and everyone's happy. Um, anyway, that was probably way, way, way too in the weeds for
It's good. It's like good
general
IoT
deep in
architect
talk,
stuff.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you can see me nerd out a little bit about some of the stuff that I'm trying to sort out. There's other stuff we could do on the protocol level where maybe the Helium packet router just rolls up all that metadata, and then there's a separate payload that you can buy for like 10 data credits that just gives you all that stuff.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. So maybe you don't want it
and
and you don't need it, but it's all, and that's a way for the HPR to earn income.
HPR or just the general network, right?
Okay.
That could be just straight protocol revenue, and then you still reward the first to respond gateways,
Yep.
or you split up that 10 data credits across everyone that was included in that metadata payload. Now, that's that's a very pie in the sky, like you know,
Yeah.
our standard hand waving on this call, but like those are some of the ways that I could see this sort of like challenge evolving. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, we gotta do it every call.
yep.
Yeah, I've actually got to go out to my one of my mountain pies and get that thing up and running again. It's been down for a week or two,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah,
It's probably one of the slower responders because it's out there on cellular and got to go through a network and all that fun stuff. But it's probably
yeah,
covering a lot of unique area, which is the cool
it's
piece.
the fingers crossed part. Yeah, and it's a good hike to get out there. So it's been a while. Probably been too long since I've been out there to mess with it.
Yeah, well, weather's getting better.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's pretty good. It's nice and cool because that's a hot one. Let's see. Last week, the Nadix and Silencio announced a partnership. So that's pretty cool just to see different DePIN projects saying like, hey, we're gonna work together and do whatever it is. Those guys, pretty obviously, are both on their phone-based DePINs. So
Not
Silencio,
pretty obviously. What is Nadix?
Nadix it's like Hive Mapper, but it's on your phone. So you put your
Got it.
phone up,
Okay.
it watches what's going on as you're driving, but instead of transmitting the imagery back, it'll say, hey, I saw a stop sign at these grid coordinates, or I saw a traffic light at those coordinates, or I saw this sign. So it identifies everything and then sends it back.
Right. Okay.
So there's just kind of two ways to skin two slightly different cats. Let's see. What else did I see come down? And I guess the other piece is that I'm shutting down the Gristle crew, so you can no longer sign up for it. It just became something I was like, there's not enough people. I'm not delivering enough value, and it's taking up too much time from other stuff. So some of the assets that were only available to the crew are now available to anyone who comes onto the GK server. And one of those is the DPU5 announcement channel. So what I did is I took a bunch of different announcements from a bunch of different Discords, and I said, hey, just feed me your announcements into this one channel. So you just go to the one place and you get the Helium announcement, the Silencio announcement, the Wingbits announcement, the WeatherXM announcement, all those the demo stuff. And it just makes it easier to
Cool.
find everything at one time.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Let's see. I'm looking at the Helium announcements on the DPU5. I missed the Orca, this Solana's DePIN Pioneers thing. What was going on there?
Uh, I have no
Is like
idea.
Scott Siegel did a thing with render folks. Do you remember that?
Uh, I think it's just standard like hop on, talk about helium in the
Okay.
space kind of thing. Yeah, we do a lot of those just to tell
Keep
people
awareness
what's
up.
going on.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
get
I didn't jump on that one.
no, that makes sense. I get a ton. I'm getting more and more of these requests like, "Hey, come talk about helium." And there's a part of me that's like super snooty. That's like, dude, I've talked about helium. But there's another part of me that's like, you just shut your hot mouth and get on there and help more people understand, and
Yeah.
that'll be useful.
Or
So
shoot them over. It's yeah, a lot of it is going to be the same story. Everyone on this call kind of is going to know what's going on around helium, right?
yep,
But a lot of people don't, and a lot of people are coming in for the first time via new DPIN, right?
yep.
They're uh, some Cardano Maxi, and now there's a DPIN on their chain, and so
Yep.
they're figuring it out for the first time.
And there's new people. We got a friend staying with us now, and I
Yeah.
was just talking to her last night about night before about Meshtastic, and about all the stuff on my roof. And she's into weather, she's in all this stuff, and it's like, oh, there's just people. There's a lot of people in the world who don't know what a DePIN is, and if we hold that against them, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. So I gotta decrease my snootiness.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
Let's
that's
see. Good.
always embracing.
Yeah. Always got to try to be a little bit cooler. Sometimes it gets frustrating to be fucking nice.
Hmm.
But I got to come back to it. So let's see. Foundation opened up or made super public the membership program, and I see a bunch of my homies are on there: Heliotics and Ingenious Things and Mycelium and LongFi. Of course, the big one's
Teague,
Rack. Yep.
yeah. Night. Dang, what's Teague's company called?
Nightjar.
Night.
Oh, is Nightjar in there? Yeah. There they
Yeah,
are. Yeah, Nightjar's thing.
yeah,
Parley Labs. It's like, oh, these are
yep.
all my friends.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, it's been awesome to release that. Yeah, I can't even begin to tell you the effort behind the scenes to get all that stuff together with,
I'll
you know,
bet. Yeah.
being a 501(c)(6) and the legal stuff and the structure and what are we doing and just team knocked it out of the park in terms of pulling that together and getting this first cohort together.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been really well received. I think we've gotten a bunch more inbound of people being like, "Hey, I want to come on as this tier or whatever."
Oh, nice.
So I'm excited to see like cohort two get
See what happens.
announced
Yeah.
at some point down the road. Um, but yeah, and then speaking of your homies, I think you got people stacking the IoT working group, so that's been fun to see also.
Oh,
So
good.
a
Good. I
little
haven't paid
mini.
attention to that at all. Max told me to run for the mobile one, and I was like, dude, I don't want to run for it. And he's like, oh, you got to come on. So I threw my name in the hat, but that was as far as that went. But I see on the IoT side, it looks like Teague is up for election.
Tig's in there. Yeah, I need to throw some candidacy of myself in there too, just to rep foundation.
Yep.
I actually need to add that to my to-do list for today.
Are
But
you going to
um,
Siegfried's asking about the embedded fair? I saw that in an announcement. Are you going to Germany?
I'll be in Germany.
Faux in
Yeah.
Deutschland
Uh,
in Nuremberg. Super cool. Yeah. April 9th through the 11th. So that's what, 20 days from now, something like that?
yep. Embedded World is like from everyone that I've talked to, that's the big fun one.
Okay.
So we're gonna see a ton of the IoT ecosystem out there. Get to catch up with you know everyone across the LoRaWAN space and NB-IoT and everything in between. Um, and we're so yeah, I'll be there. I'll have one other person from Foundation out there, and we I think have a booth. I think we're
Nice.
working with Heliotics on
Oh,
sort of
rad.
sharing a booth out there.
That's
I think we're
Miroslav.
doing
Yeah.
some stuff with Rack.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's going to be a really good time. I'm there for the week, and if there's people around, like yeah,
Go
come
track Joey
find me.
down. Yeah. You'll
Yeah,
be wearing a
you know how
mapper
to
that
hit me
says
up.
Joey is here.
Oh, gee, probably not. I think a buy would, yeah, be a little disappointed in me. But, yeah, can't give the exact location, but I'll be in Germany, and then I'll be spending some time uh, with the surrounding the trip, just talking to some other folks. I've already got some, in-person stuff scheduled, so trying to take full advantage of being out there. Um,
Okay. Is a buy
yeah.
going or is it's you and who else?
So Amy on BD is going to
Okay.
be out there.
Amy G.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, her and I we kick some butt out at these conferences. So it's awesome to always be teaming up,
That's nice. Yeah.
divide
Yeah,
and
it's good.
conquer. Yeah.
Good. It's good to have a homie to roll with, to travel with.
hmm hmm
Let's see.
Yeah. We
HIP 114 is open for discussion. This unlimited service provider rewards to grow Helium network subscribers. God, I gotta catch up on all this stuff. It looks like people are
yeah.
talking about that. I mean, so this is the governance piece that is just like this big sticky thing that everybody talks about, but is pretty goddamn difficult to do. Like if we can't get it right in actual countries, it's hard to imagine like, oh yeah, we're gonna nail it in these like small little, relatively under resourced projects.
Interestingly, I think it's been going pretty well. Like we're in this like hybrid thing of like community governance, but also
Hmm.
corporate governance. Like you
Yep.
can't just go and say like, oh, I want to give me all your tokens and please vote yes, and I'll give you a piece or something. Like that's just never gonna like go through
Yep.
because there's this sort of like audit level that exists. Um, and, we can't approve something that's going to be illegal, right? Like all this stuff sort of needs to be above board. And
Yeah.
um, so, yeah, I think it's honestly, I think it's been going pretty well, all things considered. I think the really big pain point is there's just so many proposals. So you say like HIP 114, and I'm just like, nope, that's a new one for me.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
You know, yeah.
I've seen those
Uh,
numbers put together before. Yep.
Yeah, and so, but like, it's an area where we can improve, and we've had some discussions around, bringing, whether it's like video summaries or text summaries into like Wallet app or various places where these things can be a little bit more digestible. Let
Yeah.
somebody jump in and say like, do I want to get involved in this?
Yep.
And like, where do I go to like make my voice heard, right? And we're seeing a lot of that with CBRS right now. And there's
Yeah.
this really big contention between like, is this thing valuable on the network and should it be rewarded accordingly? Um, and some people have put, tens of thousands, if not more, into deploying CBRS gateways, and they're going to be a really strong voice in saying like, I want to keep this thing going.
Yep.
And there's others that take different stances. but everyone needs to have their voice in that story. So uh, yeah, it's
Yeah, it's a tough
that
thing.
that's where things get tricky.
And it's certainly not restricted to Helium. Like every project that I see or I'm a part of, governance is not an easy thing. Um, by a long shot, because you do have folks who are really loud, who are just a giant pain in the ass, and so they can make it seem like their point of view is the main point of view. You've got people who are super sensible, who are just like they don't want to fight, and so they don't speak up that much, but they've got really good points of view. And then you've got, I
Mhm.
think there's a really important piece that is an enormous amount of work that typically doesn't get done, which is keeping the docs up to date and
Oof.
understandable and like easily accessible for everyone. Like that is no small task.
That just becomes my job, unfortunately,
Yeah, but I mean, really, like it,
which
it
I
ends
don't
up
have
being,
time for. Yeah,
it's one of those things where like that's a job for, depending on the size of the project, like 3 to whatever 7 people,
yeah,
almost full time, saying like, hey, how do we? I was thinking about this morning. How do we show not only what are the rules right now, but what the rules were and all of the changes along the way, so that you could ideally you could go in and no matter what project you're a part of, you go in and look at their docusource or their docs and say, okay, I remember 2 years ago when whatever 15 17 came out, like I remember those rules then. How have they changed now? Like what are the rules that I need to follow and pay attention to now? Just
yeah,
making that easy to find and easy to understand, that's a huge job and basically thankless, right? Because people like they'll just use it. You never see that they logged on other than if you look at the stats for visits. And the only way
I
you know
do.
you did a great
Yeah,
job is if no one complains, because everyone can find the information. But typically people are going to complain no matter what. So it's
yeah.
like this
It's
big hairy thing.
I get excited about docs because it is the primary interface to using these things. And every time we're going to talk about a network, I'm always going to be interested in like the usage side of it.
Yeah.
I could care less about how you plug the miner in because like that's table
Hey.
stakes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, but um, but it's like, what is the problem being solved and
Yep.
how is it like making that impact in the world?
Yep.
That's the cool piece, and that's where docs come in. Like
Yeah.
you need that to get people started most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And there's got to be
even better if
something.
you don't need it. But yeah,
There's got to be something for the folks who are willing to read. And I think this goes to really the community aspect of any DePIN is because it's so unlike anything else where you have this huge community of strangers who are all participating for generally slightly different reasons, right? Some folks are just they have this fucking idiotic idea that they're sophisticated accredited investors and they've invested,
mm,
$300 or $400 in a thing, and by God they should get their money back and they should be treated like they I don't know, like their royalty. And those folks have to be pointed to a piece of the docs that are like, hey, this is what you did. This is where you sit. Like you made this gamble. And then this is how the rules work so that when you have questions and you're like, oh, how do I get rewarded? This is bullshit. It's like, no, it just says in like section 3.2.a, whatever, this is how you get rewarded. And you can look
yeah,
and see when you came on the network, that was how you used to get rewarded. There's been a change. So it used to be 3.1 or whatever it was. And now it's this. You can kind of see the progression of what happened, and that dispelling of misinformation, I think, can help a project out a ton. It's a little bit of a
yeah.
meandering
I'll,
answer, but
I mean, I'll just say if folks listening to this are looking for jobs in Web3, like go start contributing to a project's docs, make yourself seen, make yourself known, make sizable, valuable contributions, and then raise your hand and be like, I want to do this full time, and I almost guarantee you'll get hired. Like, uh, it's a hard role to find somebody that understands a project and can write technical. Um, it's a, it's a, also write technical, but also write it in a way that's like accessible. Like this is all these Venn diagram of like perfection that has to line up.
yeah,
It's a hard thing to do. Um, and I'm still looking for that, right? Like I can't write all of our docs. There's too much of it,
yep,
and I frankly am probably not even the right best person to write that kind of stuff.
right. Because there's
Um,
technical stuff. So I mean, if we take Helium, there's the LoRaWAN side, there's the CBRS side, there's the Wi-Fi side, there's the sub DAO side, there's the tokenomics side. Like there's all these different pieces that each need their own basically set of docs. And
Yep.
that's not even thinking about, I think there's probably still this page somewhere in Helium where it shows you like 20 sensors that you can use or 100 sensors that you can use. And it used to
Hmm.
be those 20 sensors each had like their own onboarding thing back when everything was on Helium console. Like it showed you picture by picture how to do it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, well, what if you're not using that? What if you're using ChirpStack? What if you're using Medio Scientific? What if you're using Paul's thing? What if you're using um, any of the different things out there? Like they're all slightly different. That's a
Right.
huge amount of documentation to say like this is how to use this thing and here's how to think about it.
Yep. And the
So
you know the part that you're touching on right now is like you have to have a little bit of strategy going into that stuff. Like you can't go write a console guide because that is going to be out of date in 2 weeks, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
um,
I think
yeah.
the MetSci videos, I think those are still mostly in date, but even then, those are less than a year old, and they're not all
Hmm.
correct, right? Because the things have
Hmm.
changed so much. So I think it's something that we're seeing with founders when Max and I are talking to them is like, hey, this is something that is really important to pay attention to, and it's just going to have to be something that you dedicate some assets to. That you're like, yeah, we are not going to see a direct return on these assets, but this is critical to the project for it being healthy for the long term.
Yeah. Speaking of critical to the project, like we are issuing awards right now for the Solana Scribes Hackathon. That was
Yeah.
$15,000 worth of tokens,
Okay.
and getting distributed out to, well, 20 or so people, I think. Siegfried's
Nice.
one of them. So
Right.
congratulations.
Right on, Siegfried. Hell
Um,
yeah, buddy.
yeah, good to be able to send some tokens out to folks. But
What
yeah,
did
it's,
Siegfried get it for? What
Siegfried's,
what did he do?
he was in there with a bunch. Siegfried's always been awesome
Yeah.
on offering a lot of perspective in the way these docs are presented.
Yeah.
But then also for the Solana Scribes hackathon specifically, sort of getting in there, doing a little bit of review, doing some PRs. Um, yeah, just any and all help on this stuff is amazing. We had 91 submissions, and if you, it's almost a lifetime of reviewing stuff. I
Yeah.
try to knock these things out with every free minute I have, but if you imagine it's going to take me 15 minutes, very conservatively, right,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
review
To
each
do
one of
one.
these times 90, like that's days of work.
Yeah.
Um, so, uh, yeah, it's a it's a slog, but it's worth it, right? Like I'm always and we had some really cool stuff come out of this hackathon too. So I'm very happy about it, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's all of these. I mean, I think that's the other piece here is that when you're doing these DePINs, you're really building in public, and that sounds like a cool thing. But oh, thanks, K38. Appreciate it. Uh, I think it sounds like a super cool thing to build in public, but you just open yourself up to folks who don't know what's going on, who get pissed about one thing or they get one thing wrong and they don't understand it, so they yell about it. And so there's this really important balance of saying like, hey, we're building in public, but there's a responsibility. And this goes back to like our stake to ask a question idea, which clearly you're going to implement in the next week for Helium. And I'm really appreciative of that, Joey.
The Nick protocol.
Yeah. 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 But it's like this idea of building in public and building with a community. The distributed capex part is the benefit, but the offset to that benefit is that there's an education requirement that is mostly fulfilled by docs, but is also fulfilled by discords or
Oh yeah,
wherever the community communicates.
ads, marketing, Twitter posts, like it's endless, right?
Yeah.
You just have to be loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I think my big moral of the story, big takeaway is just like go contribute to. I've been working for Foundation for 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I think 2.5. But I've been contributing to docs for like four.
Yeah.
Since day one, I was like, oh, cool, this thing's open source. Oh, there's typos. Oh, there's this thing changed. I'm going to go rewrite that section.
Yeah.
And those things do get noticed,
Yeah.
and especially with sort of like consistent, like, sort of trying to elevate and say like, I I did a typo change this time, but next time I'm going to add an image or whatever.
Yep.
That kind of stuff is really
Yeah.
cool to
Continually
see.
improving it.
And to the point, like when I started working at Foundation, most people thought I already worked there, like because I was like internal and external. They're like, "Wait, Joey doesn't already get paid by us?" So,
Yeah.
yeah, um,
Yeah. I think it's the same thing with Germ. I think he sat down with Amir one time, and Amir's like, "Wait,
exactly.
you're not working for us? Like I thought you had been working for us for months."
Yep.
So
Yeah. No, those people get noticed. It makes those conversations about like bringing people on board a whole lot easier because you're like this person's aligned, they understand the mission, like they're talented, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah, that can't say enough about that. Big bump on the conversation side of
on the
things.
yep,
But
yep, on the doc stuff. Let's see what else is going on that I'm pulling out of the announcement piece. Demo had a ton of announcements.
oh, they're
Um,
they're
yep,
pushing some numbers.
sixty
Are they
thousand
like
connected cars,
that's wild. Yeah.
5,000 of the macarons. I always want
Yep.
to say
I want to see.
macaroons, but
I want to say macaroons too,
yeah,
but
but
I just got to
they're
emphasize the
committed to
car and
this
the
macaron.
car on. Yeah. Um,
Let's go ahead.
oh, I want to see more of those macarons out there. Like those things move some IoT data. It's such a cool use case for the Helium network. This consumer facing thing. I love that they've executed so well on it,
Yeah,
and they're continuing to invest in it. So just more and more and more. And they're really affordable. It's $100. You have 3 years of connectivity. Like name me another consumer product that does that. That's so cool.
yeah. One thing that Joey, maybe we should do. I'm seeing a couple of comments in the chat, and I know a couple of these folks like is almost like at the top of the show or the middle of the show, we start listing off the different DePIN projects that we know about. And I think the intent was to do some new stuff for this stuff. So this used to be a Helium only show. And then as the DePIN world expanded, it became more of these different projects. But it's easy for us to think like everybody knows about every single project out there. But when I think about folks in the chat, it's like, oh, did you know that there's this IoT project called Helium where you can deploy these sensors all over the place. You can put up a radio that gives these sensors coverage, and you can do whatever you want with the data from the sensor. So if you want to count people, or you want to count whatever jet skis on the water, or you want to see wave height, I mean, like there's all these sensors that you can deploy that are covered by Helium hotspots, or this Demo Macron. It's this little device you plug into your car, and it
Mhm.
reports the data on your car, pays you for it, and then you can also see it in the little app. So you can whatever check out your check engine light. It's funny
Mhm.
to me how far forward you and I are on this piece. Like we've been doing this forever. It's like, oh yeah, I know what Weather XM is. I know what Demo is. I know what all these things are. And there should be like
Last
almost
week's
a
news.
yeah, yeah. It's like super old news. I'll have to think about how we do that, but maybe I just have like a list that I read off whatever at the bottom of the hour or something.
Yeah, I mean, an ecosystem wide, like, uh, like roll up, I guess. It's kind of
Yeah,
what we're talking about. Like, you talk about Demo hitting these numbers, but there's also like newer projects that like are just going to mainnet or something like that.
yeah,
Like uh,
yeah. There's the
yeah.
and then there's the idea that once you stand up a pole on your roof and you put a helium hotspot on it, well, you should probably put a Weather XM thing on there. You should probably put a Wingbits antenna on there. There are a couple
Mhm.
rules, not rules, but like a good practices around that because Wingbits runs on, and that's the one where you track the planes. That runs on 1050 megahertz. Helium's at 915, so they're kind of close. So you want a little bit of vertical standoff on those two
Mhm.
antennas, so they're not interfering with each other too much. You might also want to put a cavity filter in, and then if you've got that thing up, you might as well put a Helium Wi-Fi hotspot on that outdoor.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
once you have the space dedicated, there's almost a list of things. It's like, oh yeah, you should put all of these pieces on here
Yeah. Uh,
because it's mine. Like as I talk to my friend who's staying with us, and we're going back and forth. I'm like, oh yeah, you could do this, this, and this. She's like, fuck. So you can make money with this thing, and you're getting whatever the weather. It's like, yeah, like that's normal for us,
mhm.
but for the rest of the world, they're like, wait a goddamn second, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, it's just it's so dang cool. Um, and yeah, that. Yep. No, you're 100% right. I have nothing to add to that. It's perfect.
Cool. Just
Yeah.
well, I'll do a better job of being prepped for it. I will say that that Demo's been doing a really good job with their announcements piece. They go through a bunch of different things that are not only Demo, but that are relevant to kind of the rest of the DePIN world. So they talk about this. I don't know if you even saw this, ournetwork.substack.com, did a whole thing on DePIN. And I think I need to start getting more prepared for these fucking calls and put a bunch of links in the description about where to find more information. Cause I can see what's going to end up happening is, as we go more and more into the bull run, there's going to be more and more people interested. And there's a bunch of sources out there that are just like, I would say that they will get you started in the wrong direction, where you're just chasing these crazy token returns. And sometimes the token returns can be enormously powerful, and so powerful, like they overwhelm your understanding of the whole system. And I think you're better off kind of understanding what you're getting into and saying, okay, these are a bunch of different gambles. They're fun. They're more likely to pay off probably than Vegas, but not all of them. They all do something that you should think about, like having the ability to do that.
Yeah, right. It's chase the utility, I think, is the thing that I always go for. Like if I understand the problem that's being solved, or if I can come to understand the problems being solved, sometimes these things are a little more abstract, then it makes it a lot easier to get behind that project.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I think we were going back and forth a little bit on Twitter. I'd redone my home, I'm shifting gears here, redid my home network with the Unify piece.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking up at mine right here.
Yeah. So I nuked it once, and this is something I was super psyched on. I was finding people locally, and I was like, hey, whatever your hourly rate is, I don't know, $180 an hour, coming in for 2 hours, just like redo the network and I'll watch you. So I learned how to do it. And I did that a couple times, and I did enough. I was like, I don't think these guys are doing things that are like way beyond me. I can just fucking learn how to do this. And so after nuking it and resetting it for, I think the third time, it was the second time, I was like, I'm just going to do all this on my own. And I did it. It was super fucking cool. It'd be like, oh yeah, I can network. And it's not like you have to have your, whatever the crazy certificate is to set up a network. You just have to kind of think through. It's like, it's not SISM.
Yeah. I used to have that book. I can't remember what it's called now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, you have a bunch of VLANs that you have to set up, and then you have to isolate some of these VLANs and figure out your IoT devices are here. And I think that's another piece that I'd like to see, and maybe I end up working on the Gristleking side, is like, how do you set up an excellent home network? Because when I Googled excellent home network, I just got some LinkedIn article that was written with a fucking AI. It's like, oh, that's not that helpful. Like, what I really want to know is how should I think about separating my phones and my computers and my printers, and what do I call these things, and where is it safe to let things communicate, and where is it not safe? And what should I fully isolate and not deal with at all? And especially in the DePIN world, if you're doing some of these VPN things, you probably want to isolate that quite a bit, I think, but I don't know. So.
Yeah. Especially if it's also gets tricky if it's a thing that's like running on your computer.
Yeah.
And like I've been playing around with IONet, which is like this decentralized compute thing. And it's a little scary to like just pull down a Docker image and like fire it off on
I'm too scared. Nope. I'll put that on its own Raspberry Pi. I'll buy a fucking $80 little computer and be like, yep, you're separate. If I need to, I can just chop the fucking cord.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. Unfortunately, these things like a little more power behind them, but it's yeah, you tread carefully, I think is kind of the if you're
What's this
inviting
thing called?
something
And it
into your
runs on your
network.
computer, IONet?
Yeah, it's like render.
Okay.
Actually, I think they sell render compute. So it's a project on Solana that you can stand up a instance of your machine. If you have GPUs, people can go and run projects on it. Um, uh, yeah,
Okay.
that's high
Dude,
level.
hey, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I just did this interview with Manos over at WeatherXM, and we were talking about something that he'd presented on at ETH Denver, where WeatherXM is open sourcing their entire reward strategy. So anyone can basically use, I'm going to get some parts of this wrong, but basically you can use a Filecoin setup cloud to rent enough compute ability to run their rewards mechanism and see if their rewards mechanism is doing what they say it's doing for any station on the network. I don't think that Helium has the same offer, right? I think the rewards mechanism, it's like it's published, like this is how it should work, but I don't think you can run it on your own. Am I wrong there? Or do you know?
Uh,
Or am I not providing enough detail?
you,
Which is possible.
I mean, you could emulate what's going on Helium. So Gateway is going to do beacons, right? And then
Yep.
those are heard, and then everything gets reported back, and
Yep.
all of that data is logged. And you could go and get that data and replay it and make sure that the rewards line up. It would be a pain. There's a lot of data,
Yeah.
uh, but somebody could do it. Um,
Hmm.
it
Okay.
assumes that you trust that the data that's being recorded is back. Like there's a gap between like the gateway and what gets recorded, right? And if something got dropped in between, you wouldn't necessarily know that.
Hmm.
Uh, but
Okay.
assuming that you trust the the packet reports, then yeah, you could replay all of that and compute rewards and things like that. Um,
Cool. Yeah, I think the two
yeah.
big things here that Monos was psyched on was the ability to basically like rent that super compute power. And they're
Hmm.
like, hey, it's not going to be such a high cost that no one could do it. I'm not sure what the cost is, but it's not going to be, I'm making up numbers. Probably not going to be $10,000. It's probably going to be like whatever, $20 or some reasonably low
Yeah,
number.
100
It's like,
bucks.
hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to run all of the rewards for the past 2 years on this mega computer that I can get through access, and it'll take some like Siegfried level fuckery to figure it out. It's certainly not something that I'm going to do or be able to do, but it's like someone could go through and just run a check, because I think that was always an issue with Helium was people say, why are my rewards down? And there wasn't a way for them to easily back check it and be like, oh yeah, the algorithm is running correctly. And part of that was parts of the algorithm were hidden because they didn't want gamers to know how they were
Mm.
getting dinged. But if we're moving towards that fully decentralized and fully transparent piece, that's I think where it eventually goes. It seemed like a super cool thing to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, all that stuff is out in the open. At least on the I don't keep track on the mobile side, so I'm
Yeah.
not gonna don't quote me on that. But on the IoT side, it's all
Oh,
out there. Um,
I'm finally done with this switching. So I've got this little cautionary tale. Is at the shop we have Cox wireless, so Cox communication with just regular cable. It's 200 up, 20 down. So like a standard whatever internet connection, broadband connection, nothing crazy. AT&T comes to the house the other day because they put fiber to the house, and they're like, "Oh, did you know you can get a free phone, and we'll get you fiber?" Did I tell you the story last time? I was so fucking pissed about it
nope,
last
but I'm
time.
just envious that you have the option for fiber. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I got fiber to the house, and the salesman who comes in, I didn't realize he's a salesman. Hector Perez, HP4110. This guy is a piece of shit. I fucking say that about very few people. This guy was completely lied to my face. He's like, hey, I can get you a free cell phone and a free line because you got fiber. Like, do you just want a free phone? I was like, the thing's free, that there's no catch, there's nothing. He's like, no. Like, we just think that if you get a phone with us, there will be, you won't want to change because it's a pain in the ass to change your internet and your phone if they're all linked up. So we figure we can give you a phone
Mhm.
and then keep you as a customer for life. And I was like, all right, that makes enough sense. I'll go ahead and do that. You're like, you're sure everything's free? He's like, oh yeah, and we'll take care of your Cox cancellation fee. All of that turned out to be lies. The phone, you get charged $65 a month to have the phone because it's the line fee. He's like, oh yeah, the phone is free, but the line isn't free. And I'm like, dude, I fucking asked you about this. So I went through the
No.
last 2 weeks, like talking to the office of the president at AT&T and making the complaint. And both Hector and his boss lied to cover up what they did. And then the office of the president is like, well, they're just reporting that they told you everything that's out there. I'm like, well, just do the math. Why would I choose to have a $60 line when my current phone line is $30? Like, I'm running a business. Why
Yeah.
would any business do that? So the purpose of this little tirade is to say, do not
Well,
fucking use AT&T. And so what I
yeah.
end up doing is canceling the whole thing and switching over to Helium. And so the Paleo Treat shop now runs on a Helium phone line, and it went back to
Killer.
Cox Internet. So
Yeah. All right.
fuck
Good.
AT&T.
I had the same. I have Comcast for my internet, and they turned off my auto pay for
Oh yeah.
it's the same thing every month. So set it
Yep.
to auto pay.
Yep.
Uh, and now I have like a couple of months of late fees.
Yeah.
So thank you, Comcast, for just doing that.
I remember. So this was like a funny story, and I'll finally come clean about this. This was totally my fault. Is that in Miami when Max and I went out there, and Frank was doing a demonstration on Helium Mobile. This was probably January of last year, something like that,
Yeah.
when they first launched the plans. Frank gets up there, and they'd left open a slight crack in the system that I exploited, where he said, "Hey, what do you think of your what do you think of when you think of your telephone provider, of AT&T or Verizon or whatever?" And they'd made it so that you could type in any word on the little app you could use, and the word would pop up on the screen, and there was no filter. They had not expected anyone to act like a fucking 12-year-old child.
Yep.
And so I wrote cocksucker. And because I've like seen it faster than anyone else, and everyone else is thinking like, how do they say it the nice way? The first word, and is of course the biggest because the first, like as more and more get on there, they get smaller and smaller. It says cocksucker across the screen. And Frank looks over at Emily and he's like, "We can say cocksucker, right? Yeah, cocksucker. That's not a bad thing to say." And so Max and I are fucking laughing our asses off because I showed Max what I was doing. Emily's looking at Max because no one thinks that I'm like so crass as to put cocksucker on the screen.
Yeah.
Max gets blamed for the whole thing.
Max takes the heat. Yeah.
But it like comes back to this thing, like they are fucking cocksuckers. Like they will just work you super hard. They don't care. There's nothing you can do. Like this whole AT&T thing, at the end of the day, I think it'll end up costing me a couple $100 to switch over them and switch back. By the time you're done with the fees and like, oh yeah, you got it for a month and you know, it's not our fault that you didn't like it and you can return it. It's still like a giant pain in the ass. And so you come over to Helium, and I'm like, there are fucking problems with Helium, just like there's problems with any company with Helium Mobile. But goddamn, the fact we keep on kind of glossing over this fact that you can use your fucking phone, and this thing, as you walk around, maps whatever the cell towers are and pays you in tokens. Like, it's fucking crazy. You know, we take that as like normal, but like, yeah, my phone basically, it pays for itself. I think with an indoor and an outdoor hotspot and a phone in total, that wallet has made like $1,000. So it's paid for everything that I bought on it. Like, it's just batshit crazy that we're living in a world where people are still like, oh no, like my $120 Verizon bill every month, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well, now the international's out too. The
I just saw
international
that.
roaming
Yeah,
just
that's right.
landed. And so I'm like free. I can actually drop AT&T 100%, which is like the
That's
was
great.
what I
Plus
was
one, I
waiting
should send
for.
you
So
$5 just for
yeah.
dropping them. Like, fuck those people.
Yeah. We should start a fund.
Yeah.
Just,
It's like,
yeah.
I got to be careful of sending $5 to everyone who drops AT&T, but goddamn, maybe I should have
Yeah.
stacked more AT&T early on and been like one AT&T for every person who drops AT&T. But I think I don't need to do that because you can just get a AT&T or you can get a Helium mobile phone. I'm sure I have a stupid reference code somewhere, so you get $5 off your first thing. But yeah, you go sign up for this thing.
I
It's
think it's
20
20.
a month, and you pay for it with tokens.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm a big fan. It's great. Love to see it.
it's super cool. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. Sometimes I think I'm not grateful enough that this group of people wanted to do this thing so badly that they put up with 3 years of all kinds of shit on Discord and all kinds of news outlets coming out with smear campaigns on them, you know, and all kinds of like
Yeah.
basically bad, mostly bullshit news. In some cases, like, yeah, they fucked up and they tried to fix it. But I feel like I really got to be more grateful in public that this group of people, whether it was Helium, like the original Helium crew kind of figuring that out, or the rest of the DePIN community, like we're all willing to figure out a new system where you get
Mhm.
compensated, you get rewarded, however you like, whatever the correct legal term is, for the data
Yeah.
you provide. Like the world is getting slightly more just. That's pretty fucking rad.
Yeah. It's an uphill battle, and I think the really cool part of it is like we're all sharing that as part of it.
Yeah.
Like we have to keep the things running. We have to like tell our friends, you grow the network, you like, participate in governance, like all that stuff. Like that's the uphill battle,
Yeah.
fighting the FUD, like all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a long haul too. Like it's been 4 years, and it's going to be more years, right, until this thing is like really, really there.
Yeah.
But as that Helium mobile subscriber chart keeps moving up and to the right, like that feels really good to
Yeah.
see. And yeah,
Yeah, and
Hopefully,
I also say
whole
like, hey, I'm
experiment works out.
aware that there's problems there. I think there's some handoff issues right now. It's like it's not like helium is this glowing paragon of perfection. There's still fuck up things there, but goddamn, the fact
Yeah.
that they're so far ahead of what's going on. It's like someone's driving around a car when everyone else is on a horse, and people are like, that car looks, I don't know, it looks too fast, too dangerous. I
Yeah.
don't know about putting fucking gas in that thing. No, I'm gonna stick on a horse. Like, oh,
Yeah. Isn't gas explosive? Like,
yeah,
am I going to blow up in that thing?
yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, totally.
Um,
So super cool. It's
yeah.
inspiring me. Maybe I should. I've got because Lee's out of town for another 2 days, so I'm working the shop and the rest of the job. So I'm in the shop a couple hours. Like maybe I'll sit down today and put up a little like set of QR codes and print it out and put it on the window. Like, hey, it makes me sound like a crazy person. Like, here's how to unlock the rest of your life. Like, this is what you should go do.
hmm
So,
I've got some assets that Nova sent me when I did that little coffee shop thing.
okay.
So I think I can bounce that over to you.
Yeah.
Maybe something to work with. But
Yeah.
um,
Totally.
I dropped it off at Kinko's. They printed on some like nice thing. I 3D printed a little stand for it. But all
Cool.
good to go. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I think I'm going to set, maybe what I'll do is I'll just set like, cause we have these, windows at Paleo Treats where there's a big one and there's two small ones. I'll just make one of the small windows like this is the DePIN window, and it'll just have a list of like it'll make all these crazy promises. Here's how to set yourself free. Fucking get helium, get Weather XM, get Demo, get Hive Mapper, get all these things. And
Yeah.
what the fuck is Siegfried talking about with full homomorphic encryption stuff?
I've no idea, but we should get Siegfried on this call one day.
Yeah.
He can tell us all the cool stuff he's seeing on the
Shit, yeah. Yeah,
Web3 side
Siegfried,
of
hit me up
things.
on
Yeah.
DM, dude. If we haven't talked already, and I'll get you a link to this thing. We'll have you on next week. That would be fucking rad. If you
Yeah.
want to. Sometimes
Actually,
people want to be
I
super
think we've
quiet.
got Helium Community. I will not be on next week because I think we've
Okay.
got the Helium Community call.
Oh,
But
if there's a healing community call, that's my week off. Great. I won't be on either. But the week after, we'll do it.
yes, yeah,
So, all right, dude. Joey, super good to talk to you. Super good to kind of shoot the shit about DePIN and helium. Thanks for making the time.
totally.
And I'll see you the week after next.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming on. Thanks K38 for the sticker. Fucking rock and roll. See you guys later.
Thanks all.